I once gave a job interview. And there's this really respectful lady, honestly. She looked at my CV and she was like, "Can I just ask you something?" And I knew what she was going to say. She's like, "Why can't you just focus on one thing? You're all over the place."
Okay.
I told her, "Give me my iPad, give me my stuff," and I walked out.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I just like, I don't want, thank you very much for your time. I hope you find the candidate that fits. I don't want this job.
Hello and welcome to the Mayman Show. We are coming to you from a special place, which is Ghazal Stable here in Riyadh, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Janadriya. And today we have it's very hard to describe what you do, but I'll try to do it. You're an artist, a fencer, and someone who's deeply entrenched in the equine world. Salwa Abuljadayel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talk about all these genres within 30 minutes.
Okay, let's see if we can squeeze it all in, right?
Let's try.
All right, okay, so here we go. So you're, like I just previously mentioned in your intro, you're heavily invested into the world of horses. So why did you choose it as your main career? And who introduced you to it?
Well, cheesy saying, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My father used to own and race horses in the Jockey Club of Saudi back when it was based in Malaz. So Malaz was the base of the Jockey Club, and then as it expanded, it moved here to Janadriya. A lot of people think that horse racing in Saudi started just a few years ago, but it started in 1965.
Okay.
It only became international, or we started opening up to internationals like 4 years ago. My introduction was, I think I just got lucky because I came off from a degree. I studied a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater at Emerson College in Boston. I did that decision against all odds, but coming back to Saudi, there was a reality of I'm not going to work in the things that I love. So I had to make a rational decision in picking up a career in something that's fun. It's going to keep me on my feet, but there's also this sense of beauty within it. And so that's where horse racing came in. And it was like, there's enough drama in it that keeps me preoccupied until I actually find the things that I want to do as an artist. So this is where these things kind of start merging into each other. So it's a decision based on what kind of emotions I'm going to experience. And horse racing makes you fall in love with the horses. It makes you cry, laugh. You're invested if it's your horse. But working in it also has its kind of its own joy and its own special perspective. So there's a little bit of everything in it, and that's why I love it.
All right, so what example can you give us, like, encapsulates how it is working in the industry?
Well, it's tough.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, working around animals and horses, there's wake-up calls at 5 a.m. to watch them train, photograph them, talk to the trainers. The industry itself revolves around a horse, an animal. So there's that kind of moving element. But then it's an industry. You have people employed, you have systems in place. You have to regulate it in order for these horses to perform in a safe environment and in an environment that kind of gives them a sense of performance. So what Saudi's doing is it's pumping up or pushing its level within horse racing around the world in a way that makes our races an attraction. So we all know Royal Ascot. We all know our neighbors in the Emirates that have Dubai World Cup. So what we have built, which is the Saudi Cup, the goal is for our leadership to kind of show the world that we also have horse racing that could compete globally on a massive level, hopefully. And so working in it, I'm just one piece of puzzle. I'm not running anything yet. But what I do is I try my best to understand the basics, the small steps, what it takes to be in this industry and what it takes to grow in it. So my experience has been a mix of photographing horses, painting them. But with the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia, it's a more technical role in communications, the media element, traveling around the world in horse racing events like Kentucky Derby or Royal Ascot, understanding why other countries have done it the way they've done it, and how we can do it in our own way, but also compete.
All right. So you're mainly doing media, PR, and communication for the Saudi Jockey Club of,
That's
right?
my area, yeah.
Okay. And so, aside from the Saudi Cup, what else can you tell us? Is in the pipeline to be added to the endeavors of the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia.
Well, right now we have during the summer races in Taif, and Taif has always been a place where the weather is different, and this is why it's important to race the horses during the summer.
Okay.
And so then beyond the summer, we have a Riyadh season starting around October, and it goes until March. And Saudi Cup is within that program. The idea is to have these races ongoing
Okay.
throughout each weekend, in a way that's professional, in a way that's competitive, in a way that keeps owners and trainers here in Saudi happy, essentially. And another element is to attract young people, people my age, to attend these horse racing meetings, to probably think about being owners themselves or participating in any shape or form. It's a huge industry. You can be an owner, you can be a trainer, you can be a jockey, you can work within those elements, or you can work in a equestrian authority or the Jockey Club of Saudi. There's so many ways for you to insert yourself.
A director there. You can be a PR and
Exactly, you can be
communications
anything. We're
specialist.
speaking right now about horse racing, but we're in a beautiful facility here in the Janadria about show jumping. So equestrian sports, it's a huge umbrella. So you might find yourself in horse racing, but you might find yourself in show jumping or something else. And there's a dog as I'm speaking.
Yeah, exactly right.
So it's an environment. Everyone's
It's an
welcome.
experience in its own right, right?
Exactly.
We're out the city. We're one with nature, and we're
It's a
enjoying.
nice escape. I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
that's the main attraction. It's an escape.
All right. And so, how do you feel working in the horse racing industry, or how do you find working in the horse racing industry and find time to train as a fencer? How do you balance both? Because you're a fencer as well.
I am a fencer, yes. Um, my passion for fencing has always been there when I was young, but I only participated in it in a serious level last year in London. So finding time is almost impossible because fencing is physically enduring. And to take it seriously, to compete as an athlete, you don't have a life.
Okay.
And
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
In its own right.
Yes. And so finding time for an athlete to have a life outside of that is always a conversation that's ongoing. So you have to set boundaries. For me, what I love about fencing, what attracted me about it, is the fact that it's a mental sport. The physical part wasn't as bad as I imagined. You just have to stay fit. The mental part, this is where it takes you to another level, and it mirrors life. So the more that you understand yourself psychologically about fencing, you kind of understand what you're doing in your job. So with horse racing, it's a lot of energy going on. Having that job as your main kind of 9 to 5 can be hectic. It can take your personal life away from you.
Yeah.
But then after that, I clock out, I go to fencing, and there's something in my brain that kind of just shuts off and just focuses on the blade. So fencing to me can be an escape from what you're doing. And as you can see, there's a pattern in what I'm doing. You just keep escaping one thing to another.
All right. Okay, so can you give us some insights on fencing as a sport, especially focusing on the discipline that that you do in fencing?
So fencing has it's the way that it works. It's a sport that has 3 disciplines, just like actually horses with the Olympics. You have eventing, show jumping, and dressage. So in fencing, you have épée, you have saber, then you have foil. And the difference in each blade is also the difference in the way that you win. So with épée, the entire body of your component is a target.
Okay.
With foil, it's just the upper body. And with saber, you slash with your sword. So
Okay.
each target area is different, and each sword moves differently.
All right.
Mine, the reason why I picked it was it's not about speed, it's not about physical endurance, it's about your mind. So this is the way that I see my discipline, which is épée.
Okay.
That's why I picked it, essentially.
All right. And so basically, I just want to tap into what a regular schedule for you would be like. So, all right. So you're working, in the horse industry at this Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia. You're training as a fencer, and of course, you are still pursuing your passion, which is your artwork. That's right here that we have right here in the background, as well. So basically, how basically do you translate all these different realms into each other, and like how's your day go on a
What does
from a
it look
creative and
like?
professional level?
That's a good question. They are realms in their own sense. That's a
Yeah.
good point. Um, the way that I do it is you start by having discipline in the way that you wake up and sleep. And between those, like we all have the same 24 hours. I try to make sense of it. I don't like my days going by doing nothing.
Okay.
So aside from my job, which is very technical, you work in horse racing, you're, checking in, checking out, seeing the world news within your jurisdiction. Once that's over, if I have training for fencing, I go to that, which is next to the club. So I'm lucky in terms of geolocations. Everything's close to each other.
All right.
So I go fence, turn my mind off from work, from everything, just focus on the blade, try to understand where you went wrong the day before. And then once that's over, I go back home and I check in with my family. And then if I have alone time, I would pick up my brush and paint. So I change the blade to a brush, which is what we have behind me right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the paintings that I've done. And the reason why I picked painting is because some things you cannot translate with words, and some things you want to express when you leave this earth, because
Okay.
our lifespan is very short. And I think with painting, you get to express emotions in a way that words can't. And I like the fact that at the end of the day, I'm creating something and I'm leaving a mark. And what I love about painting is it's physical, it stays, it speaks. And hopefully, some people can come past it, walk past it when they see it, and it can speak to them as well. So it becomes a moving conversation.
Okay. So when you say painting expresses things that words can't, just
Yes.
give me an example. How do you feel that it does that expression?
Okay, so the painting behind me is of a horse called Galileo. He's Irish, and he's named after the astronomer, Italian philosopher called Galileo. So Galileo, 500 years ago, looked at the stars and tried to understand what's going on beyond Earth. And that to me is fascinating. When I was 15, I was obsessed about him for a phase, but it was the information that I was intaking was too heavy for me to understand when I was 15. But as a horse, having that name for me was not a coincidence. You give that horse this name, and it turns out to be one of the strongest sires and horse racing figures that has changed the course of horse racing. And then for me, that kind of information, I read about it, and there's a lot of information that I want to share about it, but I don't have the words to say it. There's a connection that I see between the astronomer and the horse, but I don't know what to say about it. And so
Okay.
this is where I pick up a brush and try to tell the world what I'm trying to see, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Well, kind
So
of.
the
I
painting
mean,
behind me, you
yeah.
can see there's space,
Sure.
there's a sense of a galaxy going on, and there's no grass,
Okay.
although it's a horse race. And not to try to intellectualize it, it's just a feeling that you get. And if you're lucky with the brush, with the technique, with doing the hours, you can transcribe that feeling into an image.
All right. Okay. I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words, they say, right? I mean, so maybe
I
artwork
hope
can
so.
be worth 100,000 words, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. I mean, that was my attempt of making a corny joke, but let's get back to your
5
equine.
points.
Okay. Let's get back to your equine art form. So, how do you connect the sport with your art? Like, how do you combine the two?
Well, it started actually as a project. So I had a break. So I worked at the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia from the beginning of the Saudi Cup, which was 2020.
Okay.
But right in the middle, I needed a break. So I pursued my master's in history of art and archaeology in London.
Okay.
And so going back to the club, once I was done, the very first task they gave me was a tribute to Judmont. So what's Judmont? One of the biggest, he passed away sadly, one of the biggest horse racing figure in the world was a Saudi, Prince Khalid bin Abdullah, Allah yarhamah. And he left behind an empire called Judmont, breeds horses, and it's quite, its impact, it's hard to pinpoint. And the club has done beautiful gesture by doing a horse race that's dedicated to Prince Khalid bin Abdullah. And they wanted to kind of also give a tribute. And so
Okay.
once I came back from London, I started my job. That was the first thing on my desk. And so I was researching and trying to understand, how do you summarize a life that's that long to people?
Okay.
And so as I looked through images, I started imagining a painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up the brush as I was working. I started coming back from work and painting.
All
And
right.
everything I would research or put into a painting. And I presented those paintings. The first time in my life to present oil paintings to the world. So that's where it clicked.
All right.
I was like, the horses that I'm looking at, the images, they speak. And those words that they're speaking, I cannot express until I pick up a brush.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. Makes sense. You know, I mean, sometimes what you have in your mind cannot be verbalized. It needs to be, you know, conceptualized a bit more, you know, if that makes sense, I guess, as a
Does make
response to
sense.
what you said. All right. And so, what's your most celebrated artwork since you've started this?
I don't have one yet.
Okay.
Maybe the one behind me.
Maybe the one behind you?
Yeah.
To you, that's your most
Because
celebrated.
it's personal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, where have you taken this artwork itself? Like, give us an
This
example.
is the first visit.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So I feel special. The shows.
First time it left the home.
The first time it left the house. All
Yes.
right. Okay. Cool. See, the Mayman Show this season is just full of exclusivity. Things coming out of homes and people doing interviews
But the thing is about art, a lot of artists, they get celebrated in a way that you cannot predict.
Okay.
No one can predict if your art is worth celebrating. You can go to art schools today
All right.
and find so many people that are talented. But what makes your artwork worthy of being in a museum is a question I don't know the answer to. No one knows the answer to. The art world isn't regulated the way other industries
Yeah.
are. So there's a similarity in horses. So what makes a horse a great horse? So what makes Galileo one of the best and not one of the Generadria horses that we have here?
Okay.
How do you select that? How do you know that? And that's not having the answer. It keeps us trying. And I think that's worth digging into.
All right. Fair enough. And so, what's your aspirations and your artistic goals from the art world realm?
Well, my background was in theater. When I was young, all I wanted to do was join the theater and perform the ideas that I had in mind on a stage, not just as an actor, as a writer, as a director, as a designer. And that's where my main passion is. I hid that and put it aside because the reality is Saudi just started.
Okay.
And what I have in mind does not fit here
Mm-hmm.
at the current situation.
The ecosystem isn't available for it to thrive.
It's not. What we have today as theater is Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in Cirque du Soleil. I've grown out of that.
Okay.
I was interested in it when I was 12, and I'm not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my artistic aspirations are difficult to achieve in the environment that I'm in. So the best answer to that question is I'm going to try to create a table,
Mm-hmm.
my own, where I can express myself in the way that I want
Okay.
and be surrounded by people who understand those thoughts. And so to create an environment where I can thrive rather than to find an environment, because finding an environment means you might compromise. And
Okay.
artistic compromisations, they're not good for the artist or those around them. You won't find anything worth value if you keep compromising within
Okay.
the arts.
Okay.
You have to be true, I think.
All right. Well, that goes to a lot of. I mean, it's not really a quote or anything, but every time I talk to people in the art world, is you cannot compromise art in general. So
No.
it's interesting to see.
You can't, yeah.
It's a reoccurring stance or impression. So.
But with all due respect to those who do, some of them, look, to live off being an artist, that's difficult. This
Okay.
is where you start compromising, becoming maybe too commercial, doing things that aren't necessarily your style because you have to live.
Okay.
And so I don't want to sound far removed from reality. At the end of the day, there are people today that don't have food and shelter. Art is a luxury. It comes at the end of the pyramid.
All right.
And this is why I'm not crying or whining. I'm just living my life.
Okay.
If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, there are other more important things in life.
I think you've diversified the opportunities for you to thrive. So if heart
I
doesn't
think that's the
happen,
best way to live.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, look, you can, there's a quote. They say John Lennon said it, but he didn't. It
Okay.
belonged to someone else. Life is what's happening while
Okay.
you're busy making plans.
All right.
And you can make all the plans that you want for yourself. You want to be this and that and that. But the opportunities that come to you that might not match your plans.
Okay.
So what do? You just stay in your room? No, you're going to live. So you have to kind of be a grown up about it. So I am, in essence, an artist, but I didn't find my time yet. So I turned to horses. There's still beauty in it.
All right. You and me have something in common, all right?
What's that?
So you wanted to be an artist, but you've worked. You started expanding your horizons, working in communications, working in the horse industry, and everything. So I wasn't in the fencing industry and I wasn't in the horse industry, but I was in the officially in the media industry. But
Yes.
now I've paved a way in the communication industry as well. This is where we first met,
Where we met.
as well, and
That
we,
is
we
true.
we worked on Saudi Cup coverage for Arab News, and it's very interesting. You never know just where the road of life may take you as well.
Yes.
All right. And speaking of like Saudi Cup and participants in the Saudi Cup, why don't you give us an example or tell us a little bit about the artwork that's behind me right here?
So the one behind you is called Phantom Gold.
Okay.
I was attracted to it by its name,
All
but
right.
then as I dug into it, I realized Queen Elizabeth was known for her love of horse racing.
Okay.
And these are her silks, or the silks of the monarchy. Now they belong to King Charles. The thing is about horse racing, they call it the sports of kings.
Yeah.
What's fun about it is that no matter who you are as an individual in society, royal or not,
Okay.
your chances of winning a race are not up to you. This is where it becomes really fun. So Queen Elizabeth, for a really long time, she would participate with her horses and sometimes not win. So that kind of her excitement and her love of horses, you have to respect it because it's pure. It has nothing to do with who she was.
Okay.
Frankie Dettori, who's retiring this year, one of the greatest jockeys that's ever lived, only won with Queen Elizabeth once, although he rode a lot. And it was with Phantom Gold in, I believe, 1996. And so I saw that image and I had to paint it.
All right.
There's a connection to it. We're losing Frankie, hopefully not forever, but in the sport as a jockey. And we already lost Queen Elizabeth. And it's nice to commemorate things that speak to you. And
Yeah.
this moment in time spoke to me. So I
Nice.
wanted to give it life.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. So let's go to the fundamental years. All right. So you studied theater. All right. And where did you study that?
I studied in Emerson College, which was in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what from that experience or that duration of your life, studying theater in Boston, uh, what can you tell us, like, from that period of your life that helped shape who you are today?
It's a good question. Because the period where you graduate from college, from high school and go into college, nobody warns you, but it's the most important period and it's crucial. I made that decision to go to theater in a time where Saudi didn't have theaters.
Okay.
And so all my friends looked around me and they're like, we support you, but what are you doing?
Yeah. What are you gonna
And
do after?
What are you going to do after? What are you going to do with this? Okay, you like it. You love theater. A lot of people love theater. A lot of people watch Broadway. Doesn't mean they're going to work in it. I did it anyway, kind of like reckless youth decision. I wasn't that wise.
All right.
So going into it, I did everything: design, acting, writing, anything I can possibly sign up for, I signed up for, including costume design.
Okay.
I would sew like edges of costumes and work with actors and
I was gonna say, are you
understand.
gonna be a designer next? Is that like another thing you're looking to get into?
I don't know. I'm not gonna answer because if I say yes, I'm gonna do it, and I have a lot, so I'm gonna keep it.
Okay.
But yeah, theater taught me about life because it started with Shakespeare. I read it. By the way, we're lucky as Arabs that we can read Shakespeare at any age because it's just lugha fusha, it's our official language.
Okay.
But in English, you can't just read Shakespeare. You need to decipher it. You need to, yeah, it's difficult. So when I read it, I was like 8, 9,
All right.
and I loved it. And what Shakespeare teaches us is that life can be interesting. People can be interesting. His stories has lived for so long because people relate to it still. And you can reread it and still discover more. And for me, that's what theater is about. It's about life. You keep going to a play, into a show, and you keep discovering more. And the amount of emotional roller coasters, they don't end. Every time I book a ticket to a show, whether it's a ballet or an opera or a musical
All
or a
right.
circus, I don't know what I'm gonna expect. You know, you listen to Puccini and you cry, and then you go watch a show for a director that I really love called Robert Wilson.
Okay.
You go there and you genuinely do not know what's gonna happen the next 5 minutes. And I think that's what theater is about. It's like it's an escape from reality, but it reminds you why reality is really important and you need to pay attention.
All right.
And that's what I discovered in those 4 years. It wasn't very artistic discovery, but it was a discovery about who I am as a person, which was surprising. And I always tell my friends and family, like, you should take like acting classes or it's like anything theater related because it's not about theater, it's about your life.
All right. So after that you just said you also I remember you told me earlier you studied art as well.
History of art and archaeology. So
History of art and archaeology.
I
So
dived into Japanese folklore and
like everything you are telling me is
everything
so
I'm gonna
eclectic.
say is gonna
So
just go.
yeah, I'm gonna sit and listen. So yes, but please tell me now how this other.
You know, I once gave a job interview, and there's
Okay.
this really respectful lady, honestly. She looked at my CV and she was like, "Can I just ask you something?" And I knew what she was going to say. She's like, "Why can't you just focus on one thing? You're all over the place."
Okay.
I told her, "Give me my iPad, give me my stuff," and I walked out.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I just like, I don't want, thank you very much for your time. I hope you find a candidate that fits. I don't want this job.
Okay.
Look, I'm not recommending to try a lot of things to people, but I do. It depends on who you are. Not a lot of people can take that kind of pressure. They have to do one thing and barely do it.
Okay.
And that's okay. But for me, the more that I dive into things,
Okay.
the more the interesting life becomes. So
Yeah.
Japanese culture for me is so interesting.
All right.
The way it ticks, their concepts like wabi-sabi, appreciating the imperfections, or ikigai, in the whole list of things. There's a really beautiful book about it. That to me makes life more interesting. Discovering Japanese art and their culture and the way that they viewed things just added more to the things that I was already interested in. So it's kind of like a moving conversation. I'm not a big believer in living your life in one kind of way and
All right.
not looking outside of it because you can be removed from things. I've met wonderful people by diving into different sectors,
Okay.
and that's the whole point, isn't it?
Okay, well, that's one thing I liked about the, like media and communications in general is because you're technically not working one type of role because it changes within the industry that either you work in from the comms perspective or from, a media perspective and you're creating content for it. In my career as well, I didn't stick to one beat. Usually journalists stick to one beat. I didn't have that. I covered everything from politics to entertainment to culture to heritage to sports to investigative journalism to social topics, human rights, you name it. And I think it panned out pretty well. So it didn't really you know affect anything that much. In fact, it like you said, opens up your horizons to many things. What are your personal future aspirations? Like how would you like to translate you know all this experience and education that you've gotten and basically utilize it into something, I guess, hybrid to advance your career?
I think for me, a really important thing is to express the ideas that I have, whether it's painting or it's through theater or film.
All right.
Theater bled into film, and that's the areas where I've been most comfortable with telling stories, painting is essentially a story told within a border. And that's what I love doing. But for me, what I really want to do is stay true to myself. As cheesy as that sounds, you can do anything in your life. You can succeed, but it's not up to you. It's really just luck.
Okay.
And I can't see the future, but what I can do right now is just be true to my thoughts on a daily basis.
All right.
Career-wise,
Okay. Okay. And if you had to tell your next story, either through art, film, or what have you, what story would you tell? Your story? Okay.
that could,
All right. That's
you can marry. You can
okay. Fair enough. Interesting. And before we wrap up our interview, is there a personal message you'd like to send to the Arab News audience and the Mayman Show audience? And
Well, the only thing I always tell people is read. The first word that we received is اقرأ. Reading. Everything is in reading. We think the answers are all out there, but it's in books.
all right. And that's actually it sounds simple, like a simple advice, but actually
It's difficult.
it's difficult, and the end result is very rewarding.
It is.
All right.
I believe that.
And all right, well, we won't take much of your time. I'd like to wish you the best of luck on the tour that you guys are having currently with Jockey Club for Saudi and Taif, and moving in, back to Riyadh. And are there any other cities in the pipeline?
Maybe.
Maybe.
For me, yes. The club, I don't know.
All right. Okay. Sounds interesting. All right. And I'd like to thank you very much for taking time to be here.
I would like to thank you.
Oh, all right.
This has been wonderful. I don't speak much,
Okay.
but I feel like sometimes the best thing is to speak, but as long as there's someone to listen. And so I thank you for this time.
All right. Well, so that's not a problem. I'm not good at taking compliments. That's one thing. And
It's not a
number.
compliment, it's the truth.
All right.
Take
Okay.
it.
I'll take it and run with it. And I knew when I met you that you're an enigmatic character that was pretty interesting, and I'm sure it translated pretty well for today's episode. And tune in to the next episode for the Mayman Show, the one and only Mayman Show, and to be or not to be, I guess. See you later.